Big up Ye, by the way. Big up Ye. I'm sure some of you guys have heard this already. I'm sure some of you guys have heard. Ye took out a full-page ad in the Wall Street Journal to basically apologize to the entire Jewish community. The timing is a bit strange. Kind of felt like it's come out of nowhere, but it does kind of link up and marry up or sync up to all the stuff that we've seen from Ye recently. We've seen him try to make amends with the Jewish community by going to see specific rabbis. I remember, because I follow quite a lot of Ye accounts on Twitter, and there was one particular Ye account that was basically sharing pictures of Ye sending DMs and meeting people in his like close circle who he maybe had upset, and trying to make amends with them too. And these were like famous people. These were like, I don't know, some studio manager, choreographer, a dancer, this person, And I remember them sharing pictures of like, you know, Ye sending a message to them, or getting off a phone call, or meeting them in person. So it seems like he's been doing the work behind the scenes, in public, in private, online, blah, 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 to basically try to plead for forgiveness from the Jewish community for all the anti-Semitic things he was saying a couple of years ago, right? That mad run he went on where he was blaming all of his, all of the ills in his life on the Jewish people. It seems like he's trying to walk that back, and he's feeling bad about it. So he took out a full-page ad in the Wall Street Journal to write his apology in very Ye fashion, by the way, right? Full-page ad in the Wall Street Journal. I'm going to read a little bit of his apology here, and then we can continue. 25 years ago, I was in a car accident that broke my jaw and caused injury to the right frontal lobe of my brain. At the time, the focus was on visible damage, the fracture, the swelling, and the immediate physical trauma. The deeper injury on one side of my skull went unnoticed. I'm sorry, but Ye blaming his hatred for the Jewish people on the car accident is crazy, bro. I was in... Then I woke up and just started hating Jews. Like, what? Okay, I guess. Comprehensive scans were not done. Neurological exams were limited. The possibility of a frontal lobe injury was never raised. It wasn't properly diagnosed until 2023. The medical oversight caused serious damage to my mental health and led to my bipolar type 1 diagnosis. Bipolar disease or disorder, comes with its own defense systems. Denial. When you're manic, you don't think you're sick. You think everyone else is overreacting. You feel like you're seeing the world more clearly than ever, when in reality you're losing your grip entirely. Once people label you as crazy, you feel as if you cannot contribute anything meaningful to the world. It's easy for people to joke and laugh it off, when in fact this is very serious, debilitating disease you can die from. According to the World Health Organization and Cambridge University, people with bipolar disorder have a life expectancy that is shortened by 10 to 15 years on average, and 2 to 3 times higher on all-cause mortality rate than the general population. This is on par with severe heart disease, type 1 diabetes, HIV, cancer, all lethal and fatal if left untreated. The scariest thing about the disorder is how persuasive it is when it tells you you don't need help. It makes you blind, but convinced you have insight. You feel powerful, certain, and unstoppable. I lost touch with reality. Things got worse the longer I ignored the problem. I said and did things I deeply regret. Some of the people I loved the most treated the worst. You endured fear, confusion, humiliation, exhaustion of trying to love someone who was at times unrecognizable. Looking back, I became detached from my true self. In that fractured state, I gravitated toward the most destructive symbol I could find, the swastika. I love you, man, but he's so full of shit. Honestly, let's continue. In that fractured state, I gravitated toward the most destructive symbol I could find, the swastika, and even sold t-shirts bearing it. One of the difficult aspects of having bipolar disease are the disconnected moments, many of which I cannot recall, that lead to poor judgment, reckless behavior, and oftentimes feel like an out-of-body experience. I regret and deeply mortified by the actions in that state, and I'm committed to accountability, treatment, and meaningful change. It does not excuse what I did, though. I'm not a Nazi or an anti-Semite. I love Jewish people. Okay, guy. to the black community, which held me down through all the highs and lows and the darkest of times. The black community is unquestionably the foundation of who I am. I'm sorry to have let you down. I love us. So the black community gets one paragraph, and the entirety of the essay is for the Jewish community. You see where the real power lies, isn't it? The black community gets one sentence, and the rest of it is made up for the Jews. Ooh. In early 2025, I fell into a 4-month long manic episode of psychotic, paranoid, impulsive behavior that destroyed my life. As the situation became increasingly unstable, there were times I didn't want to be here anymore. Having bipolar disorder is not a state of constant mental illness. When you go into a manic episode, you are ill at that point. When you are not in the episode, you are completely normal. And that's when the wreckage from the illness hits the hardest. Hitting rock bottom a few months ago, my wife encouraged me to finally get help. How many times has he got? Anyway, I found comfort in Reddit forums of all places. Different people speak of being manic or this. Really? Reddit? Okay. Or depressive episodes of similar nature. I read their stories and realized that I'm not alone. I'm not just, it's not just me who ruins their entire life once a year, despite making meds all every day and being told by the so-called best doctors in the world that I am not bipolar, but merely experiencing symptoms of autism. Fucking hell, LA doctors, in it. LA fucking doctors, man. My words as a leader in my community have global impact and influence. In my mania, I lost the complete sight of that. As I find my new baseline and new center through an effective regime of medication, therapy, exercise, and clean living, I have newfound much needed clarity. I'm pouring my energy into positive, meaningful art, music, clothing, design, and other new ideas to help the world. I'm not asking for sympathy or a free pass, though. As I aspire to earn your forgiveness, I write today simply to ask for your patience and understanding as I find my way home. Yeah, I love you, but the best indicator of learn behavior or change behavior is actions, I guess, right? Whatever. These are just words, in it. Like I feel like we get a version of this every few months, you know, where he kind of like asks for forgiveness or whatever, then goes back to doing what he does before. So I don't know. I guess we have to wait and see how it pans out. The cynic in me would say that it wouldn't surprise me if he's going to announce a big tour on album soon. You know, that would probably link up to this, because the reality of the situation is this: because of all the anti-Semitic shit he said, I think his day-to-day life has been pretty horrible. I remember him mentioning before that he can't tour in certain places, especially in Europe and in obviously North America. He's banned from like places that he can't play. That's why he's been doing so many shows in like places like Asia and shit. But he specifically cannot, you know, put shows on like as a musician, or maybe even put on fashion shows, whatever. He's not allowed to move around and operate as he would like freely, because of the things that he said. And the consequences of those things that he said are that the people, you know, in power, in position to kind of approve those things, deny those things, have closed the door firmly on him. So I'm sure a lot of that has played this role in this big apology, to try and make amends in order for him to kind of get his quote unquote life back and to get back to normal, and to maybe get back into doing business and performing back in America and all that shit. I'm sure that's part of it. Because it just makes, you know, because the stuff that he was saying wasn't stuff that it wasn't the stuff that it felt like it was all coming out of a manic episode. It was stuff that he had thought about or has been thinking about for a long time. It was opinions that he truly believed in. And even if it's not stuff he believed in, he just did too much. It's hard to put that toothpaste back in the fucking tube, you know. There's just, me personally, I don't mind, you know, like he's my goat. I love him for the design, the fashion and stuff. It doesn't really bother me, the stuff that he says and who he kind of aligns himself with. It truly doesn't. But I think there are so many people out there who are just over him, you know. They've just moved on. I don't think he's ever going to get those people back, ever. He's just done too much. And I think that's one of the things that I kind of don't like about addiction and stuff. You know, when people go through AA, there's that part of AA where you're meant to like call people up and ask for their forgiveness, or, you know, maybe explain. I don't know what the exact term is, but there's a stage, there's a part of like going to Alcoholics Anonymous where you're meant to kind of make amends with people that you might have hurt during your, you know, time in the pits of your addiction. I personally think that's a bit out of order, because it's almost like you put the pressure on the person, on the quote unquote, let's say the victim, to accept your apology because you're trying to make amends. I think in some cases you can do something and there's no coming back from it. You know, there are those occasions in life where you can do something so heinous that no matter how well intentioned you are, no matter all the efforts you're making to try and make it right, it's never going to be right, you know? So I think in this regard, I should just accept that, that might be the case. You just done too much and people just moved on. You know, they're not going to accept it. They're not happy with it, but they're just going to move on in a separate direction and just not pay you any mind. And you have to be okay with that. You have to also be okay with, maybe even if you do say sorry, that some of these big, you know, venues, I don't know, production companies, events companies like Live Nation, they just might just say, it's over for you forever as well. And then you have to face the consequences of those, you know what I mean? Consequences of actions, as fucking Wings of Redemption would say. So, I don't know. I don't, on the surface, I don't buy it. That's it. Step 9. Yes, it's step 9. Big up Coiler, step 9. Yeah, exactly. Big up Alex Knox, step 9, save career. Exactly. I don't know. I don't buy it. And also the other thing too, for me, forget all this stuff about Jews and stuff. You know, obviously it's good that he's making amends and he's making it clear that he's not a Nazi, not an anti-Semite. I'm sure the Jewish community, some of them will be happy about it. Fuck all that shit. What about all the stuff he said about Virgil? What about all the stuff he said about Virgil? What about all the horrible, hurtful, damaging shit he said about Virgil? Like, how about all that stuff? Are you gonna, has he reached out to Virgil's fucking widow and said, and said sorry? Has he reached out to people like Tremaine and apologized for all the stuff that he said about him? Like, there were so many things that he done during that period that I think are like on the cusp, if not the definition of unforgivable. And also they were done, with the intention of hurting someone's feelings, and they were done with a clear mind. They weren't done in a state of, do you know what I mean? I don't know. There's certain things that he did and said during that time that I don't think he's ever going to be able to walk back, ever. Maybe he doesn't want to. I don't know. But let's see how it plays out. Let's see how it plays out. But Ye is pleading for everybody. To accept his apology.